Hey guys, this is going to be a video for how to put together a lower parts kit for an AR-15. This is in no way a manufacturing video. This is just putting parts together that come pre-made into a lower. So this is our stripped AR-15 lower. It is a blank canvas to put parts into, and when you're done, this will be considered the registered firearm portion with the serial number and everything. So this is what you do a background check on, and when it's all completed, this is the part that is the gun. So as you swap it over into different uppers, this is your firearm. So what we're going to do here is we're going to start by putting on the bolt catch, I think. And what that requires is this right here, this piece right here, which is kind of a an insert into this spring like that, and then that's going to go onto this side right here, and what we'll do is we'll capture that with this right here. So this is a roll pin or a pin that you are going to insert into this hole. I've preset it because that's probably the most difficult part in terms of how long it takes. Because what you need to do, and I'll show you, is you just align this pin with the hole right there, and then you are going to put this in a block, right, like that, and then this holds onto it for you, and you're just going to take this hammer and tap on it until it's partially in. And this is where you can kind of mess up. You don't want to push this pin all the way through. You just want it set in this piece right here, because if you do go more than partway through, then you won't be able to get the bolt catch on. So I did preset it just because it takes a little while. What you're going to want to do is get a vise, get this kind of block, establish it into the magazine well, and set it up vertical like that, and just tap away at it until it's stuck in there, okay? So once you get it set, then you're going to take this spring. It's one of the bigger small springs that you have. So there's these long, thin springs over here, and then there's this tiny spring that's a little thicker than the other small springs that you'll see. And you will know that it works because it's going to be one that fits perfectly in the hole like that. All right, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take your little plunger here, and you're going to put it right in the spring. Oops, and sometimes you don't get it first try, so you just kind of wedge it, and there you go. Once it's in the spring, in that hole, then what you're going to do is you're going to take your bolt catch, you're going to align it with the ridged part up, like so. You're going to put it right in there. And so that bottom portion here is going to be actuated by that plunger. Now what you want to do is you want to align the hole, and then you want to tap in your pin the rest of the way. So I'm going to see if I can do this by hand. If not, I'm going to cut the video and do it off screen. Yeah, I'm not going to be able to do it on video. So I'm going to cut here, and then I'll do the rest off screen. Okay, so I've worked it part way here. You can see that the pin is in further now, and the way you check to make sure this is working is if you can depress this and it rotates freely, you know that it's functional. So now I know I can pound the rest of this in, and I want to get it flush so that you can't see the pin on either side. So I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to cut away again. Okay, so I have gotten the pin in the rest of the way here. You can see that it is now flush right there, and it functions, so we know that that'll work. All right, so we won't be able to test this until we get an upper because this is the bolt catch, but we know that it works because it does that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to put in the magazine release. So that is these two, and then this large spring right here. So this large spring is going to go over this on the threaded portion, and then this piece screws into that side. So the confusing part here, if you have never done this before, is how do you get this in here where it's supposed to go, and then also screw in a piece that's supposed to go into that hole, okay? So it's pretty clever. They have designed this in a way, what you do is you put it in the way it's supposed to go, and then you take this spring, so the way it goes looks like that. It's basically Legos cut out. But then you take the spring and you put it in, and then you're going to take your magazine release button, all right? And what you're gonna do is you're gonna push down and twist until it is on the screw, okay? So now it's on there, right? I can't do anything. And then you wanna push the button all the way through the hole, and you wanna rotate this by hand, okay? And you can see that I've got the thing in the way here. So what you do is you take something like the screw that we're gonna use later, but really anything, to push this button in and all the way through, and then you rotate by hand like this. And all we want to do is rotate this enough that it tightens so that when we release, both the button and the catch or release are going to be in their respective spots so that a regular finger press will function it. So you can see here, I now can't rotate the button, and I want to be able to use a regular finger press and not be able to rotate that. So it's currently in there. So without doing a lot of force to try to get it out, it's not going to work. So I'm going to rotate this one more time to get it to where I like it to be. So I'm just going to press that in as far as it'll go. Spin it around one more time. Oops. And there we go. So that's going to work for me. So now that button doesn't rotate. And when I press this by hand, you can't spin it because it's captured by these two pieces. Okay, so now we have our magazine release in, and we have our bolt catch. Okay, this next part we're going to work on is the trigger. So the trigger comes in a few pieces here. So you can see these pieces go together, and what's going to happen is we're going to take this spring, drop it down into this hole right there, and that spring is going to be a little smaller than your bolt catch spring, okay? And then that goes there. And then you're going to put a pin through there to hold them. But then what we really need to do before we do that is take this right here, which is our trigger spring, and we need to loop it around this so that this flat piece right here that bridges it is under the metal. So I will show you what it looks like when it's done, but you're just going to take these loops and put them around those. Oh, and I might have done that too far back. Let's see if I can just push that around. Nope. There we go. So now this is under the metal right there, you can see, and the spring is where you want it. So I'm going to drop this into the lower first, right there, and it just kind of sits, and when you're done, you're going to press this down in so you can see it's all set, and then the walk pin is going to go right through that hole through the trigger, but we're not quite there yet. So we take this screw right here, and this is going to be hard to do. A lot of people like putting it in first and then putting a slave pin through, but I have not had good luck with that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this, put that portion over that spring, and now once we're here, we're going to take something like a tape where we have a hole. We're going to align up the walk pin holes right there. We're going to take our walk pin, which looks like this, and we're going to take the side without the ridges, and we're going to put it right in there. And then we're just going to rat-a-tat-tat on it. And then once you have it captured just a little bit, you should be able to take your finger off it, and it looks like it's all aligned and good. So I'm going to put this firmly down and then tap it in the rest of the way. And once you feel it give, like that, you can just kind of let it go entirely. And then you're just going to use like a rubber mallet. And then once you get that, it's flush on both sides. You can see it's kind of held in place. Okay, so I did that portion, all right? Now you can do the hammer. So we're gonna put this down, and we see the hammer here. And you're going to loop this around these two nodules, like that. And you want the flat piece right there to be resting on the hook portion, and these two just resting free, I believe. And then we're going to take this hammer these two spring pieces that are jutting out are going to rest right on top of that pin, and then you kind of press it down into place like so, and you're going to put, it's hard to do, you're going to put your walk pin through the hole like that. So what I like to do is you take your walk pin and you just kind of get it established, and then you push until you find the hole. Oops, see, I just dropped it all the way through because I did it too fast. Oh, I think I got, no, did it too fast again. Can be hard because the spring is under so much tension. Had it. So there we go. Holes aligned. The hole was aligned. There we go. And I've got it sort of captured. Sort of. So we're going to see if we can just go the rest of the way through. There we go. should do one-handed. But you want to align that on this side. There we go. Now it's in. Okay, once you have that, all the tough parts are kind of over. So now we can check our hammer. Should lock back, and then the trigger, when you pull it, should release the hammer, and we're gonna keep it safe like that. Now we can install our safety. So the easiest way to do this is to pull the hammer back so that the safety and firing pin can go through right here. And there's this nice little flat piece on the bottom. That's why we have to install this second. So we're gonna put that in there. And then what holds this in place is this fat pin right here in conjunction with this spring, this screw, and the grip. So the way to do this is we're gonna take just the fat pin. We're gonna hold the firing selector on fire, drop that in there, okay? And then we're going to take the grip and put our spring in this hole right here. And then comes the hard part. Holding onto the selector, we're going to work this onto the grip. And this grip, I know, is going to be very tight in terms of getting it on there, so I'm gonna have to use some pressure. All right, and once I've got it on there that far, I can now flip it over to this side with the safety. Oops, the safety turned itself upside down. There we go. So now, once it's on this side, I'm gonna take this punch and I'm just gonna kind of work this spring so that it goes where that pin is. So the goal is to get it like that. You're just gonna press it around until it goes in the hole. And then you can kind of work this the rest of the way on. And you want to leave just a little bit of a gap there, because now what we're going to do is we're going to take our Allen wrench that's kind of long and put it onto this screw with that little washer. And then you're going to work this into the bottom of the grip. There's a hole that aligns, and I just did that. Fell off the Allen wrench. There's a hole that aligns with the bottom of your lower. You can kind of do it blind. You're just doing it by feel. But once you feel it in the hole, you're just going to tighten it up. I think I got it in there first try. But you'll see as soon as it starts to tighten that that gap will go away, because the screw is going to pull the grip the rest of the way on. It's a very long screw, so it's going to take a second to engage, but it'll start to tighten up at some point, and you will feel it start to pull the grip the rest of the way. There, I just felt it tighten up. And here it goes. The gap is closing, and you just want to hand tighten it all the way down. Check it on both sides, no gap, no gap, and then you can check to see if it's functioning by flipping your selector, okay? And then you can check even more to see if it's actually functioning. It's on safe, can't pull the trigger. It's on fire, can pull the trigger, okay? So we're gonna put that back on safe. And now we have kind of our options of what we want to do. So what we have left is we have the the trigger guard here. This is a trigger guard that I'm not really used to using. It uses this plunger. So I'm gonna have to kind of figure that out. I'm pretty sure I can. I think I already know how it goes. But that's going to be put here, and then this roll pin is going to be put here in the back to capture that. We can do that now since we already did trigger stuff. So I'm going to flip this around. And what I think is that this plunger goes on this side where that hole is. And then since there's no hole on this side, we're going to just depress this, pop it in there like so. And then that swings loosely. And then it feels loose, but as soon as I put that other roll pin on this side, I don't think it's going to wobble like that. So I'm going to put the roll pin in and we'll see what happens. Typically on better trigger guards, you'll have a screw that has a tiny Allen wrench and you'll just screw it in. And I think that's a better system. So if you have one of those, fear not, it's very easy. You're just going to align it and thread in some screws. But if you're like me and you've got these roll pins, then I feel sorry for you. They're a lot harder to deal with. Once you set it, as long as it's aligned, it should be as easy as just tapping down on it. And I know it's set because I can't move it now. So what we're going to do is we're going to get out our punch for more direct contact. And punch down. And we want this to be as flush as possible because that's where your fingers are going to go, and you don't want to rub your fingers against a piece of metal sticking out constantly. So once it's in there, if it's not flush enough for your liking, and this is not currently for me, you need to find a pin that aligns with it a little better. My hat keeps hitting the thing that I've stood my phone on. And that's pretty good for me. So I'm going to take that out. And now it's not the most secure, but it's not wobbling like it was before. So that is pretty good. I'm just going to keep that the way it is. If I decide to upgrade my trigger guard at some point, I probably will just swap it out with something nicer. Okay, so everything seems to be functioning there. So what do we have next? We have these takedown pins. The large takedown pin goes in the front and the small one goes in the back. And you're going to need these two pins right here for each of those. And they are captured here with springs. So you've got these two springs and they're both pretty small. And these seem to be different sizes. I don't remember them being different sizes in the past, but let's figure it out. That looks like it could go there. So the longer one up front maybe. And then we're going to take one of these pins and we're just going to push it in. Whew. This is going to be the hardest part for most people, and you're most likely to lose one of the pieces that you're using. So be aware that that is a thing that happens. Ooh, I almost had it. Okay, I've captured it. So just pushing down with the pin itself until it pushes all the way in, and then it hits that channel, and then you can just pop it in if you do it right. There we go. So now I've got my first takedown pin in on the back. That one's pretty firm, so hopefully they're both like that. The better and tighter the pin is, the more likely you are to have less wobble. Okay. So this pin is a little different. So this pin goes here, on the other side though, like so. And it's got the same kind of channel, and it is captured from the back. So what you do is you install the pin first with the channel facing backwards, and then you drop the pin in the back, and then you drop the spring in the back. And that spring does not like going. So maybe I did that backwards. Maybe I used the wrong spring, and that was why it was so difficult. If that is the case, I will have to pop another spring in, but let's see if I can't clear up this issue. Well, the good news is I have extra springs, and having the other spring in the front won't actually cause any issues. So I'm going to grab this spring right here out of my other kit, test it, that's the right size. Okay, so we're putting it back in, and then we're dropping in our pin, and then we're dropping in the new spring. Okay, and then we can test, is it caught in the channel? Yes. So from this position, how do we capture this spring? Well, that is all involving this, okay? So this barrel nut right here, or not barrel nut, but it's the portion that goes onto our barrel, buffer tube, sorry, is gonna go on right here. And then we tighten this on here by hand. But the thing is, what we need first is everything that's going to assemble this. So we get our barrel or buffer tube nut, and we hand screw it on. And once it's most of the way on, then we put this thing here, and this slides down the channel on the buffer tube, or should at least. Sometimes it's finicky. I did it backwards, that's why it's finicky. And we want this part that's indented to go in towards here, because that's how it captures on the lower, okay? So once we have this, then we're going to hand thread this onto our lower. And this is our buffer tube and our buttstock selector, okay? And what's going on here is eventually, once we get tight here, we're going to align this with the bottom, and then we're going to just press this and force that spring in, and then we're going to use our thumb to hold that while we keep hand tightening. But the whole thing is step by step. Everything captures everything. So that's not far enough, because what we need is to get the next piece in. And I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I'm just working step by step here. All right, last piece of this puzzle here. You got this spring and this retention pin. And this retention pin holds your buffer tube spring when it's all said and done in your buffer. So what we're going to do is we're going to drop these down into this hole. And then you're going to push down here And the goal before you push this in is to hand tighten your buffer tube enough that it covers the side of that pin. And you'll see it when I'm done right there. See how it's holding that pin in? That's what you want. Okay, so now that that's done, make sure that this takedown pin is still captured. Yep. Now we're going to push this plate straight down like we did before. Sorry, hit the camera. And then we're going to hand tighten this nut. Okay. And now that plate is locked in place because it has this indent that fits with the lower. And this nut we're going to tighten with a wrench later. So we're just hand tightening it for now, and it's good, but it's retaining the pin. And then this is retained by the buffer tube itself, and this pin retains the spring that goes in the buffer tube, which we will now place in there. And it retains it by using the buffer tube itself. And what we're going to do is we're going to press this in right here, and there you go. Retained by the pin. Good to go. And here you go. You have a mostly built lower. Here is our buttstock. You just slide it on the end here. And then this is a 6-position buttstock. And all we do to get it on there is we pull this down, push on, let it lock. And now this, just by pressing on it, selects which size you want. So I'm going to keep that on the low for now. And here's our fully built lower. This is a fully functioning, fully built lower. All right. Everything here will work. These are pretty basic. I don't have a upgraded trigger in here. I don't have an upgraded grip. I don't even have an upgraded buttstock. These are as basic as you can get. But if you follow pretty much all these instructions, even for the upgraded kits, you're going to end up with the same thing. Triggers usually will come with drop-in triggers, and so they're not going to be like pieces that you have to put in like that. It will be much simpler. You'll just drop the trigger in and then put your walk pins in. Some of them come with anti-walk pins, which will be screws that you tighten up to the side of the firearm. And that's it. And then you drop your upper on there, and you've got a AR-15. So if you've got any questions, I know this was a little bit of a jumbled mess. I haven't put one of these together for probably a couple months now, but I like to keep up to date. I like to build things pretty regularly, and this is going to be one of my new project guns for next year. So this is not fully completed. This is not anywhere near what it will be when it's done, but I did want to put a video together to help out people who wanted to do their own ARs. So the important thing to note is trigger before safety, and then everything else is just kind of like as you're doing it, you'll see the pieces that capture and when you need to do it. So like you saw when I was putting in the spring that captures the buffer tube, I knew that I had to screw in my buffer tube further to get that to where it needed to be. So I just did that, and then you depress the spring, you put in your recoil spring, and then you put in the buffer tube and you press it until the little piece locks in place. So yeah, if you have any questions, drop a comment. I will respond, and thanks for watching, guys.